All right, welcome Kairos families. My name is Jared Austin. I'm the co-founder, superintendent, and CEO of Kairos Public Schools. And today I want to hang out with you and talk a little bit about campus safety. I know it's a hot topic. There's been things in the news. There was even a rumor going around locally at another school in town. And then last night, there was a lot of different noise that was going on some different social media platforms. So I thought it'd be great to be able to hear directly from me on our campus safety procedures that take place at all of our campuses at Kairos Public Schools. So let me get set up here. First, I want to talk about voice and choice. Kairos was founded on voice and choice. We believe very strongly that everyone should have voice in the organization, and ultimately, everyone has a choice in the organization. This is not a school that your kids are required to go to. We're very thankful that you choose to send your students to our school. But this is also a very difficult topic to go through with school safety, and it can have a lot of different emotions that it brings up in people. And ultimately, people may choose that this isn't the best place for them, and that's okay. I'm also a huge advocate for free speech. And so I know that we live in a digital world and that people can say whatever they want. And I'm a huge fan of that. They can say what they want. But I also have a responsibility to clarify when misinformation is communicated, especially when those without direct knowledge spread false, misleading, and fear-mongering information, whether that's on social media platforms, which claim to spread information about our school and our community, when really many social media groups, including ones that often claim to spread good information about the school, really sow seeds of deception. And so, whether it's a social media platform that's spreading false information about what we're doing here at Kairos, or it's a city council meeting or a board meeting, I carry the responsibility to set the record straight with transparency. And that's something that we have done over the last 11 years. And as long as I am here, I'm going to make sure that that is the number one priority of our school going forward. So let's talk a bit the lens in which um, I see things here at Kairos Public Schools. We all have different lenses that we look through. I'm a parent. I have my children here at the school. Leslie and I started this school um, to benefit our children and to create a school that our community want to partner with us on, to stand alongside with parents and co-educate and be a parent community. But I'm also a husband to a staff member here at Kairos. I'm also the son of a substitute teacher here at Kairos. I'm an uncle to a couple different of my nieces and nephews here at Kairos. I'm a fellow church member of many of you at Kairos. My kids hang out with many of your kids. I'm a resident in the community, and I'm also the top administrator who, along with my team, carries the weight and responsibility of nearly 800 students every day and nearly 100 team members. Most of our staff is made up of Kairos parents, former parents, and grandparents, including our board, who are all parents. Three of the previous KPAC presidents are staff members, and one is a board member. We're a community that has created and maintained an organization run and operated by parents, which gives us a unique lens because we care deeply about the safety of our children. So there is a lot of voice in the organization, and we see all through our lenses of what is best for kids. And so we try to make the best decisions that we can make in a crazy world in which we live in. So I want to talk about mitigating safety measures. I cannot eliminate any safety threat in a school environment. I wish I had that power. I simply do not have that power. We live in a crazy world. But again, my priority is to try to do everything I can to mitigate it to where we have the best safety procedures that are in place for your children and my children. So what have we done in order to mitigate some of those safety measures? First, when we open the school, we put up fencing and gates to create barriers to keep people out. We want to have an inclusive environment where we're welcoming parents and everyone else, but there has to be an orderly process in which they come in. Now we have buzz-in systems and we have great security measures. We have security cameras that have AI integration that are able to have facial recognition, license plate recognition. We unfortunately have to help many of our families that go through custody battles and different people who aren't allowed to be on campus anymore. Our AI security cameras allow us to upload pictures of people that aren't supposed to be on campus. And with that, if the cameras see that person without even notifying a staff member who has to do something directly, law enforcement is notified and our staff are notified immediately. Those are the different measures that we put in place through our own initiatives of raising additional funds to bring the AI cameras in place. We have campus safety monitors who are very visible all over campus. We have our Catapult EMS emergency notification system that is on every staff member's phone. It is connected to our intercom systems. It is integrated with the Vacaville Police Department, and we even have shared alerts with local schools in town to receive proxy alerts if there's an emergency that happens at a nearby school. In fact, law enforcement can actually put us on a lockdown without ever having to call and get through the phone system or a person having to answer their cell phone because they are integrated into our Catapult EMS system, which notifies our staff members and starts an emergency response. We also have our K9 deterrent friend, Creed and his companions, which you may have even seen on our campus today. And has been a frequent visitor to deter any type of intruder or bad person that may want to come to our campus. They will think twice when they see our K9 friend out front. A few years ago, we integrated our Ring cameras and Echo shows. So we have locked doors on every campus, and we'll talk a little bit about the importance of that later on. So our doors are locked. We don't open the door for knocks. You have to ring the doorbell. And on the other side, our staff and students are able to see who is at the door, just like you would do at your home. Before they open, they verify that it's safe to open. And that is also can be used in our emergency response system, which we'll talk about later. We also have increased our social emotional counseling staff and our resources. Our ability to connect with people through human relationships and help students solve some of the problems they're going through is a part of our safety measures as well. Oftentimes, when you study incidents of school violence, it's because they didn't have the relationships where a caring adult was helping them process through some of their emotions and some of the hardships that this world puts on all of us. That is in place. We also regularly do drills. Every single month, we are doing different drills on our campus to go through our emergency procedures. And I don't know if every school does this, maybe they do, but included in those drills are hard conversations that we have with our students and with our staff of if there's an emergency and there's some difficult things that happen, how do we work through that? But we would rather that our scholars and our staff members be prepared on how to walk through the best they can in an emergency procedure. And so we coordinate with our local law enforcement to help us with these drills, to give us feedback. We brought in campus safety specialists to give us feedback. We have a regular threat assessments and everything done to make sure we're doing everything we can from many different outside agencies, not just local law enforcement, but other agencies as well, because we want to take every mitigating safety measure we can in order to make sure that your student is safe. As I said earlier, we carry the burden that every day you're dropping your children off to the school, and we want to make sure that they go home back to you safely. That is a heavy burden, and we want to make sure we put everything in place in order to make sure that happens. I want to touch briefly on the cell phone policy because through some of the safety or the conversations that were spread on social media, and some fear mongering and fanning of flames that people do that don't have direct knowledge to what we're doing here at Kairos Public Schools. This cell phone policy of us taking away student cell phones is being brought up. This has been communicated with our Kairos community for several months now of the cell phone policy. So I want to be very clear, the purpose of it is also partly a safety measure. The bullying and social media and hate that is being sent to our students at a very young age is very real. And it causes a lot of social emotional damage. And in some cases, even causes students to take their lives. And that, again, is a heavy burden that we have to walk through. And so part of this was the intent that not just California, but several states across the nation are seeing the impacts that having these devices with students that have access to the internet, social media, and other things are actually causing more harm than good. The second is we've always said that cell phones are not allowed to be used in class without permission in order to create a distraction-free learning environment. So part of it is we just want the students to not be addicted to their cell phones. So asking the students to have their cell phones in a cabinet that is next to the teacher so it's not a habit to just pull out of their pocket and look. There's 25 students to one. Yes, teachers manage classrooms. Yes, they work very hard to deliver the content, but they are not going to be able to catch every student who pulls out a cell phone and starts to send some instant message or whatever other type of communication platform that is spreading hurtful messages to others, or simply just being distracted by social media or sports or whatever they're looking at. So we ask them to put it away while they're learning. And then if there's an emergency, the first thing our staff does is make sure the lockdown procedures are in place. And then they make sure the cell phones are handed out to any student that has one, because we want our students to have access to the communication tools in an emergency with their family. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the importance of that in this presentation. In addition, California just passed a law saying that schools have to address the cell phone policy and looking up for ways to have it not be such a distraction. Kairos has always been forward thinking and trying to come up with new things. We discussed the cell phone policy with our parent advisory council last year. We ran it through our staff, instructional leadership team, and teacher leaders. We've talked about it as our board policy committees. We talked about it in our board meetings. We communicated it with families, and we've received overwhelming amount of support. Is there some people that like to grumble on social media? Sure, that's going to happen no matter what. But ultimately, the purpose and the intent is to create a distraction-free learning environment. It is not intended to make sure your students can't communicate in an emergency. If your student has a medical condition, the policy literally says that they are exempt. So if they have to carry the device because it communicates with a Dexcom system for diabetes care or whatever else is needed, it is exempt. We want them to have access for that. Their care and safety is important to us. No one is going through around and searching kids' pockets and backpacks to make sure they put their cell phones in these cases in the classroom. We want them to voluntarily put them in there to create the distraction-free environment. But if they don't, no one's going through and searching their backpacks, and no one's going through and searching their pockets to make sure that they have done that. Lastly, there's some spread information of like, well, if they go to the bathroom and they need to be accessed, students have never been allowed to take their cell phones to the restroom, because oftentimes in our environment, through our lens of what we're seeing, that's when the problems occur. They say they need to go to the restroom, and then they're on social media or sending messages. Not every student, but that's when a lot of the problems do happen. So if the cell phone is in their backpack and we're not going to allow them to take their cell phone out and go to the restroom. That just looks suspicious. So again, I hope you hear the heart of the cell phone policy is again to create a distraction-free environment. It has nothing to do with not allowing students to communicate in an emergency. So let's transition into the standard response protocol, which is the emergency procedures in which all Vacaville and Fairfield schools have been trained on and have operated under for the last 11 years. So people can say things on social media. They say that they can't believe that I'm implementing a policy or whatever at our schools. But this is called the standard response protocol because it is used as a standard at all Vacaville and Fairfield schools in which we were all trained on in order to make sure that all law enforcement in a response is sharing the same information, has the same procedures. So there's no guessing game because minutes matter in an emergency, and we don't want them to try to be figuring out our systems. They need to know the systems and train with us in the systems. And so having a standard response is how we operate. And this has been developed nationally through the I Love You Guys Foundation. We'll talk a little bit about the story with that, but you can look that up online. I Love You Guys Foundation. Just do a Google search and you can learn more. But again, this is not the Kairos policy. This is not the Jared Austin policy. This is a standard response protocol that all schools in Vacaville and Fairfield have been trained on and operate under and have been for the last 11 years. So let's talk a little bit about the standard response protocol. You may see this poster if you volunteered on our campus in the last 10 years or 11 years. This is in every single classroom and every single building. It's a quick action alert. It tells everyone what to do, including our substitutes if they don't know. The standard responses of hold, secure. Secure used to be called lock out. So if you're like, I haven't heard of secure before, it used to be called lockout. The updated versions call it secure. And I'm going to walk you through each one of these emergency protocols so that you have an understanding. And for transparency, this is exactly how our students and our staff are trained on these procedures. So every one of these images is in the classrooms, and it has a quick reference of what to do if one of these were to occur. We're going to talk about what these icons means. Again, schools across the country are using this protocol during an incident or an emergency procedure. It's a shared lexicon with law enforcement for school safety. The key is that it's simple, it's shared between staff, parents, students, and first responders. And when it's used, everyone involved shares the same expectation. So the lexicon is simply vocabulary. And who are we sharing it with? Well, first, it's shared with our first responders. So if something happens to our school, they know what to do. Then it's shared with our staff and teachers. They're all given the exact same training. It's also the same language we use with our students. And obviously now we operate a high school, and the conversations in which we have with high school students are a little bit different than we're having with our TK and kindergarten students, but we try our best to bring it to an age appropriate level in order to make sure they understand what all of these different emergency steps take. We also share it with our parents, as I'm doing right now, is sharing this information. And we've done several parent universities over the years outlining this. And as I go through this presentation, again, I'm looking at it through all my lens I shared earlier. It may even get emotional for me. It gets emotional for our parents when they hear some of the protocols in the process because this is everyone's worst nightmare. And I just want to acknowledge that. I've lost so much sleep over this over the years because, again, there's nearly 800 students that you send to us on a daily basis that you expect for me and my team to get them back home to you safely. So let's talk about the different actions. So it's based on 5 actions that we take during an incident or an emergency. So again, that's hold, secure, lock down, evacuate, and shelter. Each action is followed by a directive, which tells you what to do. And then every action has specific instructions of what to do in an emergency. So there is a public address, and we use Catapult EMS as well as having it integrated into our PA system. Not for every drill do we use the PA system like we would in an emergency. Because again, we are dealing with students that are from 4 years old up until 15 years old at the moment. Um, and our youngest students get really fearful when the PA system starts going out. But in an emergency, everyone's going to be scared and a PA system is going to be used. But for most of our drills, we are using the the Catapult system on the cell phones, which for those of you that don't know or may have forgotten the previous information that we've sent out on this, that bypasses all of our staff members' silence alerts. It basically operates like an Amber Alert system that sends out a very loud, annoying message that is heard by all in order to get the attention and start to give directives on what to do. So hold is we want you to hold the students in your classroom. So why is a hold needed? Well, the hallways need to be kept clear for one reason or another. So why would they need to be clear? Maybe there's an animal in the hallway. We've had stray dogs come on campus before over the years. We've also had incidents where students have had medical emergencies and we didn't want the playgrounds to be full of students while the ambulance was taking care of a student. And so we wanted them to be in their classrooms or in a localized area so that our first responders can care for the needs of a student on the playground or whatever it might be. Then we give the students instructions. And that could be that they're going to remain in the classroom until everything is clear. If you're in the hallway, you're going to go to your assigned classroom. Otherwise, students and teachers remain in their classroom until an all clear is announced. And again, that is done through our Catapult EMS system. And then if it was a real hold, it may be done through the intercom system as well. So teachers, what do they need to do? So here's what teachers have to do. They remain in their classrooms with their students until the all clear is announced. Pretty simple, exactly what the students have to do. Teachers should also close and lock their door. Their doors are already locked. It could be open for any student that needs to get out of the corridor. So if a student had gone to the restroom and they're coming back, they would do the same system of the ring doorbell, and then they would be let in to the classroom. The teacher takes attendance, make sure that everyone is in the class. That is all done through our Catapult EMS system. And then we are seeing if there's any students that are out and about, and our staff go and find them and bring them to their assigned location. All right, so what about class changes and what has to happen? Well, business as usual is going to take place when a hold is in place. They're going to continue the teaching. Each lesson is going to continue to be completed, but class changes are not going to occur. because again, we want to keep the hallways clear or the playground clear for the law enforcement or first responders if they're helping in a medical emergency. Um, so if something were to change, we would let them know. Is this a lockdown? No, this is not a lockdown. Um, with the whole protocol, we just don't want what's happening in the hallway to spill over into the classroom. Students remain in their seats, continue lessons, and if lessons are done, students may be given time to read, but there's really no drama here. So let's talk a bit about secure. Something dangerous is near the school. So that means that we want everyone to get inside, keep the doors locked, and pull everyone inside that can be. So why? Because there is some kind of a threat that is outside the building. We have had this in the past. There's been bank robberies in the downtown area, and law enforcement has put us on a hold or a secure, or it used to be called a lockout, because they just wanted to make sure that if there was someone that was running by, that they wouldn't be able to get on campus. That's been communicated with those that were with us during those years. That's happened. Um, but that's what would be happening. It could be, again, criminal activity nearby. It could be some kind of civil unrest. It could be because there's a dangerous animal outside. Maybe not this one, but maybe we have had, like I said, stray dogs come through the campus. They get people a little bit nervous. So if there's an exterior doors to the classroom, which there are, we make sure that they're locked and stay locked. And then we also make sure that the campus gate that's locked stays locked as well. And we don't let anyone in, even if they buzz the doorbell for the front gate. The campus is considered to be on secure at that moment. And so the exterior gates stay locked. Um, always, as almost always in these situations, business is going to be done as usual in the classroom. Student learning is going to continue to happen. The instructions that the students get is that they are going to go in the secure protocol. And let's talk about what that is. First, it's to get into a building, get into one of the classrooms. So if they are outside, whether it's on the playground, it's in a PE class, or they went to the restroom, they're going to go to the nearest classroom, and then they're going to be able to have business as usual on the inside. But again, no one is getting in or out from the external gates. And like I said earlier, business is going to be as usual in the classroom for as long as that secure is in place. So let's talk about what teachers are hearing and during a secure, and what should they be doing? Well, first, they're to bring everyone inside. And that brings up the notification of when students or staff are outside. How are they going to be notified? Well, first, it's again through our Catapult EMS system. They're going to get that alert, and then there's going to be a PA announcement that talks about going into secure mode to make sure that all of our staff know what to do, and it's very clear on what the action is that they are to take. The teachers, again, are making sure that their doors are locked. And then the big thing, and this is where our Ring cameras help us, is they're increasing their situational awareness. And as always, they're being attentive. The great thing with the Ring cameras is that in any of their classrooms, they can say, Alexa, show me room 1, or Alexa, show me room 2, whatever their room number is, and it will show them what is happening outside their door. And it has a great 180-degree view. So they not only see what's happening out their door, they're seeing what's happening to the left and to the right, and maintaining that situational awareness. Again, for a potential threat or civil unrest that's happening outside of the campus, and being attentive throughout this whole process. Um, Teachers take attendance again through our Catapult EMS system to notify if anyone is missing. Also, if a teacher or a staff member found a student in the hallway or out at PE, or they were meeting with the counselor, or whatever reason they were not in their class, Catapult EMS is able to have a staff member note that a student is with them. And then we have a process where we are able to see where everyone is and then see, okay, well, Johnny is supposed to be in room 1, but he's actually meeting with the counselor. The counselor has acknowledged through the app that Johnny is with her. So that student is accounted for. So all of that takes place. And again, teachers are keeping business as usual in the classroom and trying to make sure that they can teach as much as possible. It is distracting because, again, you're hearing the notifications, but our teachers are wonderful and they're great at navigating hard things. And so they are trying to keep it as business usual as possible. While we are in the secure, um, all of our outside exterior doors are locked and no one is allowed in or out. Um, that could mean that you're coming to pick up your child to take them to a dentist appointment and the gate's locked and no one's answering the buzz-in for you, whatever it might be. But again, that is because law enforcement has told us to go into secure mode or lockout, and so no one is allowed to go in or out. It may mean that there is a controlled release. So if there's an activity nearby the school, again, not on school campus, and law enforcement directs us that there needs to be a controlled release, where students are released to their parents slowly, law enforcement will assist us with that situation. Throughout the secure, depending on the incident, it might be safe to monitor who is allowed in our building, which we do through our security cameras. But again, at this point, and anytime there's a secure or a lockdown, law enforcement has taken over and is telling us exactly what to do, and we're following their directives. So let's again talk about this for a second. What are some of the reasons in which a secure would happen? Well, there's a threat or danger outside, again, outside of the school grounds. It could be a bank robbery, could be a high-speed chase because we're near freeways, could be a suspicious person nearby, it could be police are doing a check on a house nearby, or maybe it's a fire in the neighborhood. It could be all kinds of different things. As for why law enforcement has asked us to go into a secure mode. What about class changes? Again, we wouldn't be doing class changes. Unfortunately, you may have seen the news that some students have gone through these secures and they're stuck in classrooms for hours and hours. In all of our classrooms, we have emergency buckets that can double up into bathrooms, and there's supplies in there. There's all kinds of different things, again, because we hope we never have to use them. But in the event that we do, we want to make sure that we are prepared. Um, I'm sorry, I want to also mention who can call a secure. So again, I mentioned this earlier, law enforcement has direct access into our Catapult EMS system along with all of the public schools in town. They could put us on a secure without ever calling the office or calling my cell phone and doing it because they have access to our app and notification. But any staff member can actually send us into a secure if they see a suspicious activity nearby through the Catapult EMS system that is on everyone's cell phones. We don't do class changes. Can the students leave the school at this point? No. Again, no one is in or out. And law enforcement is telling us what that is. And that could mean that even if the school day ends and they still have us in a hold and the threat hasn't been removed nearby, then we may have to have a controlled release like we mentioned earlier. So I'm going to take a quick drink of water, and then let's talk about a lockdown. Lockdown is more serious. Again, it's our worst nightmare. Lockdown is locks, lights, out of sight. I'm going to walk you through this. May or may not get emotional. I've shared this with our staff every single year, and I tend to get emotional again through the lens of being a father, husband, son, uncle, and all the different lenses in which I have family and friends on our campus. I actually have more family on campus, on our campuses every day than I have out of campuses every day. Um, so why something is inside the campus? So that means the threat has entered the campus facility on one of our campus somewhere. And so that would send us into a lockdown. What that means, it could be a wrong person and the threat is there. It could be a report of a weapon. It could be something worse, as in an armed intruder or some other threat that is around or inside the campus somewhere. At that point, we're doing everything we can to put into motion time barriers. And so all of our classrooms are already locked. And if there is a lockdown, not only does it go through the Catapult EMS system, the intercom systems, all of that, our staff are getting the students, the lights are off. They're getting them hidden away from windows and doors as much as possible. And then we train our staff to grab the fire extinguisher that's right next to the door, and you hit whoever walks through that door. And so when we train with law enforcement, every single law enforcement officer is told that if you open that door, even if it's to give the teacher the clear that they can leave the classroom, be fully expected to be hit with a fire extinguisher, because they are doing everything they can to create barriers, so that no one can get into the classroom. And if they do get in, they are going to be hit with something to try to disorient the person coming through. So why do we want to do this? One, studies show through the Department of Justice, over 70% of events are done within 5 minutes. 90% are done in 10 minutes. And then the Sandy Hook Commission did a study, and the number one recommendation that they gave was to make sure that classrooms were locked. In their study, they found that there were 0 cases of a gunman breaching a locked classroom door. That's 0. So when we heard of this study years ago, that's when we implemented the locked door policy, Ring doorbells, buzz-in systems, all of that stuff, in order to make sure that we were making the campus as safe as possible. So again, if we looked into the studies to show, the evidence presented is that when the doors are locked, it's much harder to breach it and that they're not able to get in. So let's talk about some of the instructions. And you're going to see a bit of a video here in the next few slides to walk you through, again, how we train our staff and how we train our students. So the instructions that they're given.
If you're in a classroom when a lockdown is called, the main thing to remember is locks, lights, out of sight. As students gather in a safe area of the room, lock the door and turn off all lights. Have everyone in the room move to a location that is out of sight. Pick an area of the room that can't be seen from interior windows. An actual lockdown may not be resolved for several hours. Here's how you should wait. Stay in the safe location. Don't move around the room. Remain silent. Staff, take written attendance of who is in the room. Note anyone missing and if you have any extra students for staff.
So obviously some of this is outdated from how we operate because I mentioned the Catapult EMS system that we use for attendance. Again, we're telling our students to stay out of the sights of windows and corridors, to get out of sight if they can. We want them to be silent. This is hard. Again, we're working with students from 14 and soon we'll have 18-year-olds. And not everyone is compliant and is quiet, especially in an emergency situation. But if we can keep them silent, and then have their cell phones on mute, all those different things, um, then that makes it go better. Again, if there's a lockdown situation, we are making sure that if a student has their cell phone, they are given their cell phone. And then immediately they are asked to text their parents and let them know. We are not trying to hide this from parents. We are not trying to do anything like that, including if their student doesn't have a cell phone, but they know their parents' phone number. Our staff will give them their cell phone to contact it because we want the parents, to the extent that they can, to have communication with their child in an emergency, but also maintain as much quiet as we can. We don't open the door for anyone. And I know that this is going to be hard for everyone to hear, but it doesn't matter if we hear knocking, if we hear screaming, if we feel like we know who's on the other side. Law enforcement has trained us that we do not open the door for anyone. There is 25 students in a classroom on average. And if you open up the door for that one student who you think might just be one, but may actually be a hostage from an intruder, now you've opened up the door for 25 other students to be potentially injured or harmed. Um, and that's super hard. Again, I've got children, nephews, nieces, family members on this campus, and they're told, and I've trained my sons since they were in kindergarten, that if you're in an emergency and you are not able to get into a classroom, you run to the safest location that you can. So at the Elm campus, they were taught to run to the Golden Arches. If that's the clearest path you have, which is McDonald's, run to Ace Hardware, police station, find a caring adult, whatever it is, jump the fence. So yes, when people are making claims like, oh, Mr. Austin is asking our students to jump fences, only in the rare situation that this would ever happen. And if it meant that a child can get away and find a caring adult, that's exactly what law enforcement has trained us to do, is to run away and find a caring adult. Um, we won't be opening the door for anyone. So let's talk about the instructions that the teachers are given. First, again, they're making sure the doors are locked. They're getting on their Ring cameras and asking to look to see what's outside the door so that they can make sure the barriers are there. And if there is an intruder that's coming near them, they are doing everything they can to put barriers in front of the door. And if God forbid someone got through the door, they are going to be hit with whatever they can to protect the students. We turn off the lights again so that they can't see through windows, do anything like that. We try to get out of sight. There's a lot of windows on our campuses. So hiding in corners, flipping over desks, whatever we have to, we make sure they do that. They try to keep the students silent. They try to give them something quiet to do for as long as we are going to be in that emergency situation, which again, statistically is not for a very long time, but every minute is important. Um, and a lockout cannot be ended with a PA announcement. So I know that this is like, well, we have to make the announcements, and the announcement of a lockdown can be done and will be done in an emergency, but it does not end a lockdown, because in the unfortunate situation where an intruder forces someone to pull the fire alarm, or forces someone to make an all clear announcement on a PA system, which may or may not happen. We are trained not to do that, because if they open, then all of a sudden staff open up the doors and students start leaving, now you could have a potential chance for more violence to occur. So it only ends when the police open the door and they release the students from the room. During the time that we are in a lockdown, the teachers are taking attendance through the Catapult EMS system. They're noting any missing students. They're also noting any extra students that they may have in their class, because maybe it was during reading buddy times or whatever the reason may be. All of that is being logged through Catapult EMS, which again, law enforcement locally has access to. And it's in all the communications on, along with every one of our team members, so that we can have an account of where every student is. Next, I'm going to show you a little bit of a video to give you a little bit of an idea what this might look like.
If a fire alarm sounds, do not leave your safe location unless you are certain that a fire is threatening your room. If you are forced to evacuate due to a fire, keep in mind that the hall may not be your best escape route.
All right. So let's have a discussion between a secure and a lockdown. Secure, again, is when a threat is outside of the building. A lockdown is when the threat is inside of the campus. After securing the perimeter, secure is business as usual. Lockdowns is locks, lights, out of sight. And again, law enforcement is on our Catapult EMS system, and so they will be communicating with us throughout this entire situation. So what happens when you're outside? What happens if you went to the restroom, or you're in PE class, or you're on the playground for recess? You are not going to be going back to the building. Rather, we want our students, and we tell our students to try to get to a safe location and notify the school of that location once you get there. So first we tell them, get to a safe location, and our PE teachers, sometimes in our drills when we have these, walk them through routes to get out of the campus. And then they're told, call your parents first, and then have your parents call us and tell us the location of where you are. Because again, in our accounting of the students, we're going to be noting them as missing until we know where they're at. So we want to hear from you in that situation. And this is at all age ranges. Again, I've had to tell my kids from as early as they were in TK that if an emergency happened and you're outside, you run and you find a safe adult. And we all have that shared responsibility. Again, I cannot eliminate the risk of a school. I can mitigate to the best that I can, but we have a shared responsibility. And ultimately, as parents, how you tell your students and train your students for an emergency in this crazy world, I'm a supporter of you telling them how to do that. I've had to do it myself. So what if there's no teacher? So if they can get behind a locked door, then that's great. If the door is if they can, they should be closing the door and then get out of sight. If not, they need to try to evacuate and get away from the threat as fast as they can. That's what we tell every grade level. What if you're in the hallway? Um, Teachers check the hallways quickly before. Again, we have the Ring doorbell systems. If there's a chance through, again, that Ring doorbell, and they have that 180-degree view that they can grab a student and bring them in, we're humans. We're going to grab a student and bring them in. But once it's locked down and everyone's hidden in place, do not go. We're going to tell them, don't go to classroom trying to get in. They need to evacuate and find another option. Our staff in an emergency are not wandering the halls. My staff have been told, because I don't have direct supervision of students in my classroom, I will never be in the classroom. I will never be in my office. I will do what I can to make sure that if someone's in trouble, I'm not going to leave them there. But we have staff that are directly responsible for 25 to 29 students in their classrooms, and their responsibility is to keep those students safe. So what happens if an alarm goes out and the fire alarm sounds? Unless they see flames, they're staying in the classroom. Because again, an intruder may pull the fire alarm in order to get a mass evacuation and then potentially have more casualties in a violent situation. So we don't want that to take place. Can we text our parents? Yes, absolutely. Again, we are not trying to take away cell phones in an emergency. If there's an emergency and the cell phones are in their cabinets, they will be distributed as fast as possible in the lockdown. They're not leaving the classroom. If a student doesn't have a cell phone, staff have cell phones, and they may be telling them to text their parents as well. Are they going to be on the phone calls, calling them, FaceTiming them? We hope not, because again, our goal is to keep it silent as possible. But we want them to text their parents and communicate them if they can. This entire protocol was developed by the I Love You Guys Foundation, um, who is a father of a student who unfortunately passed away in a violent incident on a school campus. The last message that student sent to the father during that emergency was, "I love you guys." That's where I'm going to get emotional. Because again, you can say what you want on social media that we're trying to take away the cell phones and create an emergency situation where your kid doesn't have access. That's the exact opposite of what we're trying to do. We want to get it to them as soon as possible. However, we hope that the situation never has to occur, because it is our worst nightmare. Um, we are, if we are asked to evacuate, again, this is another part of the response protocol. Maybe this is a fire drill. We're moving away. Right now, we're moving away from the lockdown conversations. And then the evacuation will occur. Instructions for students. Let's talk about what they do in an evacuation. If they're being evacuated because it was a lockdown situation, or even if it was a situation of school violence, you're going to leave your stuff behind. You're not going to bring it. Law enforcement is not going to allow students to take their backpacks and their different things, because again, they're trying to make sure to mitigate any risk of any other potential intruders that might be behind. So they're going to be telling everyone to leave their stuff behind in the classroom. We're going to be telling students to listen to all the different directions. We're going to be telling the teachers that they're going to be leading the students out. We're going to go to our evacuation area. And again, we're going to take attendance through our Catapult EMS system. And we're going to have that accounting for students. Is there self-evacuation options? Yes. If the students are out on the playground, or if there's a violent act, then you're outside. Again, we want them to self-evacuate. And here's a little bit of a video to show you what that might look like.
During the initial moments of a school violence situation, the official call for a lockdown may not have occurred or not have been heard by everyone. You need to assess your personal safety. consider your best option. This may include staying in a classroom behind a locked door, hiding, or evacuating. Self-evacuation, which means exiting the school and leaving the campus, is an option. If you're in a hallway, common area, or near an exterior door, self-evacuation may be your best choice. Once you've arrived at a safe location, you should immediately check in with your parents and the school district to let them know you're safe.
All right. So now let's talk about a police evacuation because that is going to be a bit different. And here's a video for you.
When law enforcement begins the evacuation, here's what to expect. An officer will unlock your door and enter the room. Stay where you are. The officer will give you specific instructions you must follow.
Springfield Police Department, you're safe, everything's okay, we're gonna get you out of the building. I need everyone to follow my instructions. I need a single file line, leave all your personal property on the floor where it is, form me a single file line right here at the door. Teacher, I need you in front, please.
You will be asked to leave your stuff behind, form a line at the door with the teacher in front,
I need everyone to hold hands with the person to your right and left.
hold hands with the person in front of and behind you until you reach your final destination. Wait quietly for further instructions from the officer.
Teacher, I need you to walk out, follow the instructions of that officer right there. Go ahead.
You will be told to proceed to the next officer. Walk, do not run, and do not talk.
Walk towards the stairs.
Follow the directions of the officers guiding you during the evacuation. They could be giving you verbal directions
Right to the stairs.
or hand signals. Watch the pace of your line. Be aware of obstacles such as corners, fallen objects, debris, or stairs, which may affect the speed your line can move. Don't stop until you reach the location you were directed to.
Keep moving all the way to the end of the fence. All the way to the end of the fence. Keep moving.
Verify attendance and wait for further instructions.
Connor,
Here.
Andrew, here.
Okay, so let's talk about instructions for students. Here's what students need to do. And these are going to be some hard images to see, but it's important to keep your hands visible to officers when they're leaving, unless they ask you to hold hands, as you saw in that video. It could be that they want your hands on your head. Again, you're likely going to be asked to leave your stuff behind, but we want you to bring your phone. Again, we are not trying to keep phones away from students in emergencies, but they may not be able to bring a purse or a backpack. Those phones would need to stay in their pockets for them to have it. We tell students to don't be surprised if officers are loud and demanding. They don't even know the extent of the incident yet in many situations. They may give directions that you should follow. And again, keep their hands visible. And this goes for teachers as well. There may be circumstances in which we tell them they can't bring their purse, their briefcase, or backpack, but they would be bringing their keys and wallet. They're going to be taking their attendance sheet, which has a hard copy in their emergency binders, as well as it is in their Catapult EMS system. We tell all of our staff to make sure you bring your phone because the Catapult EMS is on their phones. And then when they get to the evacuation area, they are going to take attendance again through Catapult EMS. All right, let's talk discussion questions on this. Do you have permission to self-evacuate? Yes, we train our students to, they have the ability to self-evacuate, but pay attention to the situation. We don't know where the threat is, or they may not know where the threat is, to see if they can exit away from the threat. Obviously, these conversations are different that we would have for a middle schooler and high schooler than we have with our TK and kindergarten students. Staff, we tell them the same thing, but we tell them don't leave your students. So if you're teaching PE, don't run to the Golden Arches by yourself. Take the students with you because you're outside and running away from the threat. So if you do self-evacuate, where do you go? It could be another school. It could be the nearby businesses. Again, like I told you, I train my boys to go to the Golden Arches if they can get there, or go to Ace Hardware or the police station, or find an adult nearby that they can get access to a phone and call myself and call the school. If they have a friend's house nearby, or if they have, again, we're near businesses, um, and contact the parents and the school as soon as possible. Do we open the door? In a lockdown prior to the police-led evacuations, we don't open the door for anyone. The police have keys to our campus, on all of our campuses, and they will be the ones to open the door. And I really hope they get hit with a fire extinguisher, if that were to happen, because that's how we train our staff. What are they able to take with them? It's unlikely that they're going to be able to take anything with them, other than their cell phone, in an emergency. Why do you keep hands visible? Again, law enforcement are trained that the hands can hold dangerous things. They want to see your hands. So they may be asked to evacuate with their hands up above their head, or their hands, again, holding someone else's hands. It depends on what they tell us in that emergency. So what will the police do? In some cases, they're going to evacuate us to an assembly area. In other cases, they might relocate us to a reunification area, and that's a whole separate presentation on post-emergency reunification that I would have to train you all on. But that, again, would be up to the law enforcement of what they want us to do in that situation. All right. So this concludes the presentation that I have for all of you today. I know it's a long one. Don't know if you stuck with me or had to take several breaks to get through this presentation. But I want to leave you with a couple things. One, we care about your kids, because there are kids too. Our kids, our family, everyone are here. Like I said, most of our staff are either parents of children on this campus, grandparents, or have former children here. We are parents ourselves. Our board of directors is made up completely of parents. So all of the decisions we make have a parent mindset, and student safety first. If you look at all of our parent surveys, 98% on average every year respond that they feel our school is a safe environment. The emergency procedures that we put in place to mitigate any type of an emergency have become well known, featured on several different news agencies. Several different schools have come and learned, and we've shared our processes and procedures with them so they can replicate it. And again, if it makes a school safer and a harder target for any type of person to get on this campus to harm our students, then we want to make sure that that takes place. So I hope that this is helpful to you. I hope that it clears up the misinformation and fear mongering that can take place online sometimes. I also encourage you to ask. I argue that we have the most visible leadership team of any of the schools around. Come to our KPAC meetings. There's opportunity to ask administration, in which all of us attend those. Any questions on any topics. We present all this information and more information at those meetings. Call, email us, look at Parent Square, whatever it may be, but we want to make sure that you guys are equipped, and that you feel comfortable to the greatest extent that you can, for your students. when you drop them off. And I just want to again thank you for the opportunity to present this information to you. Have a great day, everyone.